One of the biggest hurdles you'll face in Rise of the Ronin is deciding what the hell to do with the hundreds of gear pieces you'll get. How do you decide what to use? What do you disassemble or sell or upgrade or bond transfer? Today I'll cover all of this and help you make a build in the process. Let's go! Let me know what your favorite weapon is in Rise of the Ronin in the comments. We'll firstly start with the build stuff and stats and then get into the nitty gritty of the blacksmithing side of things. And so that starts with skill points. Now, there's a couple of things to think about with skill points and how to actually earn them. And the crux of it is the difference between experience points and karma. Now, experience points can be earned by defeating enemies and completing missions. And if you earn enough experience, you will level up and earn a skill point. Now, you can see your current level at the bottom left of like the menu screen or say your player level. Now, skill points are different to your player level. Skill points can be earned through a means of different activities. A really quick way to earn them is by completing regions, as you usually get a couple from that. You can get them from skill books, or you can get them from karma. Now, karma is only earned by defeating enemies, and once you have maxed out like your karma bar, you can rest at a Veiled Edge banner to convert that karma into skill points or potentially rare skill points. Now, rare skill points can only be used to unlock certain skills in each of their respective skill trees, and you can actually get rare skill point books from some of the silver coin vendors like the cat collecting vendor or the official for fugitives, for example. But the way you actually increase your overall level is from experience points, and the level is really important because of equipment level, which is something that we'll touch on much later in this video, but just keep that thought process in mind. So when you're thinking about these stats and what you should be doing, I touched on this a little bit in my mistakes to avoid video, but you shouldn't be focusing on just the one stat, right? It's a little different to typical Team Ninja games or sort of these Souls-like type experiences. It's a bit more general than that, as each stat is responsible for certain attribute increases, even if weapons do actually scale off specific stats. Now, just as a side note, if you're wondering sometimes why certain weapons, even if they have a higher equipment level than others, are better than others, it's because of that weapon scaling, which you can see by pressing L2 to see the details and actually see what stat they're scaling with. Now, you increase each stat by putting skills into their respective skill trees, but you should be putting them sort of not necessarily completely spreading them everywhere, but putting them across all the different skill trees and picking skills that are actually relevant rather than focusing on one or two. One of the early skill trees I would absolutely focus on is strength, because strength overall increases your primary attack and defense, which you can't go wrong from having a lot of that. And there's a lot of skills in the strength tree that will improve your overall effectiveness with weapons, like your overall damage, your max health, combo potential, martial skill damage, those sort of things. Dexterity increases your secondary attack, so like your ranged weapons and your stagger potential. There's also some stealth-based skills in this line, as well as some bow, some shuriken, and earthen ball skills. The charm line increases your poise, your key recovery, and your luck. The skills here are focused on your allies and supporting, as well as some evil doing like pickpocketing and like gambling buffs. Intellect increases your infliction and your adaptability, as well as the skills in this line are revolved around healing and some status effects and afflictions, as well as rifle and revolver. So realistically, you want to focus on strength, grab those healing ones in intellect, and then it depends on what sort of a build you're focusing on, whether that be, stealthy for say dexterity, or maybe you're really relying on your allies, or maybe going the charm route. But if you aren't really comfortable with the skills you've picked, you can actually reset them with a brush kit, which you can get from Black Marketeers, and then you take that item to your longhouse, and then at the blade redesign you'll be able to actually reassign all of your skills wherever you like. And you can do this as many times as you like, as long as you actually have one of these items in order to do it. But the main thing I wanted to focus on today is the blacksmithing part of it. Now, it is as important in Rise of the Ronin as it was in Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Almost very much the same as Wolong Fallen Dynasty, there is a balance to strike between disassembling and selling gear. Now, rarer pieces you should be disassembling, mostly because you get more of the crafting materials, which you'll then use for upgrading and bond transferring your gear. More on that shortly. But selling gear is useful as well, because you're really going to need a whole lot of coins, and especially in sort of the early to mid game, it's pretty hard to earn a lot of currency to actually use into this system, and it takes until the later game to really start earning it, unless you're spending a lot of time completing all the regions to get the Urbane item, which is just a great way to sell to actually get a lot of currency, or you're spending time gambling on that mini game. But the real reason that this is just so important is because of your equipment level. Now, as your player level increases, so does your max equipment level. So there is a bit of a disconnect here in terms of when you're looking at, say, missions, or when you're looking at fugitive boss fights, etc. And they say, okay, like, you know, you need to be level 35, etc., whatever, right? Now, you might look at your player level and be like, cool, I'm level 40, I can clearly take this out. But your equipment level is actually what's more important here, because it defines the highest level of equipment level you can equip. But if you're actually got a lot of items equipped that are significantly lower equipment level, let's say you're level 40 and they're all level 20, you're going to be doing so much less damage to all of those targets. That's the actual thing that's important, not necessarily your player level. A mistake that I was making as well is I had a lot of pieces equipped that were completing the set bonuses that I wanted, but I wasn't upgrading them or really switching to any pieces that were better because I wanted to keep those set bonuses. If you want to do it this round, there's a couple of ways that you can keep that gear. Now, simply just by using the upgrade option at the blacksmith, this will cost you those materials you will have gained from disassembling, and you'll be able to increase the equipment level that defines like its core stats. It won't increase the passive stats, like the percentages you get from that, but it will increase its core, say, defense for armor or weapon damage for, say, weapons, for example. Now, the other way you can get your equipment level up is from vendors' gear. Now, a key thing to note here is that any vendor in the game, whether it be from the first like open world area or the last, their items that they sell you will be at your max equip level or thereabouts, right? So if you find a vendor that sells the set bonuses for the armor sets you actually want, you can return to them much later down the line and buy the items from them at that specific equipment level, rather than having to spend all of those resources, the currency and the materials, to bump your current items up to that equipment level. It just saves you a ton of resources, as it's very expensive to level up your items with you, especially as you start getting into those higher levels. It's very expensive, and it's much cheaper to just buy an item, let those passives roll again, but actually get an item that is of a higher equipment level. The same actually goes for treasure chests. Like, I found that if you return to like the first area of the game and you're looting treasure chests to complete the regions there, the equipment you actually loot will be at your max or thereabouts equipment level, so you can actually return to those older areas and do that. The enemies will still be at their lower level, so this will be very easy to clear, but the treasure chest there will actually be of the higher level. And like, seriously, trust me that the further you get into the game, especially when you hit those couple of difficulty spikes, your equipment level and actually doing a decent amount of damage and having a high defense is significantly more important than just having like, you know, a higher level of skills assigned to in like your skill tree. It's much more important to do this. Now, before you mindlessly sell or disassemble all your unwanted gear, one thing to pay attention to is the passives on that gear. Now, you can actually move the passives from one piece to another using the bond transfer. So you'll notice sometimes with like the higher quality gear, like the orange items, that they'll have a passive slot that's empty. Now, you can actually transfer a passive into this from another piece of gear. This will destroy the original piece, so make sure you don't want that item, but you can actually put specific passives on there that are relevant to your build, or like stronger passives that you may actually want. These use a item called bond jewels, and there's two really ways you can get these. One of them is from completing regions that have them as a reward, and the other is from buying them from black marketeers for silver coins. And you won't need heaps of these if you're not using this process a lot, but I do recommend doing this probably around like the mid-game Edo region, when you are really getting into build crafting and making your build and using those set bonuses and picking up some really quality gear. You want to start doing some bond transferring. If you're wondering, say, like what passive you should be getting, just like generally speaking, just increasing your overall attack for weapons is obviously a good thing to get. Martial skill damage is great too if you use the martial skills a lot. For armor, lowering your damage taken or increasing your max health are obviously great. Or you could get some, say, specific things that are relevant to your build. In this example, right, I'm using an affliction fire-based build, so I want to increase my damage on enemies that are affected by status effects, so they're afflicted, so that's really good for me. If you want to actually see that build, I'll link that video here, but for the most part here, anything that's sort of giving you some sort of a passive that you're actually going to use is definitely beneficial, and it's often not worth grabbing the passives that are of the higher quality because they are so expensive to actually invest in. Even just getting the cheaper versions of them are better than actually getting nothing. But let me know what set bonuses you're using in the comments, guys. Thank you for watching this video till the end. I hope I've helped you build out your character in Rise of the Ronin understand the blacksmithing and the skill trees and how to earn skill points. It's kind of complex here, and I hope I've done a good job of explaining it. But thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.